Hello, everyone. You are listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast presented by Great Railing. I am Jordan Hall, and as always, I am joined by the dynamic Joe Fordyce, and we are both absolutely thrilled to be joined by Flyers Hall of Famer, three-time Cup champion as an assistant coach and player, and current analyst for TNT, Rick Tocchet. Rick, thank you so much for joining us. How's your summer been?
It's been going good. I'm missing the hockey talk, though. It's been a while, so yeah. I'm glad you guys invited me on the show. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Definitely always enjoy your Flyers insight. Been loving your work on TNT, so we're really eager to ask you about this Flyers team, where it's going into next season. But I want to touch a little bit on last season, Rick. The team went through a lot of instability. What do you think the biggest issue was, and do you think this can be turned around somewhat quickly here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to develop the young guys. You know, they're going to make some mistakes, but you got to get them on the ice. I know that was something that the last couple of years the Flyers have tried to do, and I think that's the big key. Me as the player without the puck, you got no chance of winning if you're playing 5-4 hockey games. I think when they were searching for a coach and they ended up with Torts. Torts is a guy that you have to play. You're in your own end. He's a disciplined guy when it comes like that with that. And I think for the Flyers, especially for the young guys you want to develop, there's nothing worse is when you're losing games, high-scoring games, and you're not in the game. So that's why it's important. I'd love to see them this year really concentrate on their defensive part and stay in hockey games and let these young guys grow, give them some ample time on the ice to make to learn experiences. And they got some veteran guys there too, like from coming back from injury. So it's interesting where they're going to go, but I know one thing with John Tortorella, they're going to play a really structured game in their own end.
So, Toc, I wanted to ask you about there was a lot in John Tortorella's opening press conference. There was a lot of talk about culture change, attitude change. You've coached in this league as a head coach, as an assistant coach. How difficult of an undertaking is that for a new coach to come in and kind of change everybody's approach to the way things are done with the organization?
Yeah, it's not going to take overnight. It's a long process. Hopefully quicker, but it is a long process. And I think, and I listened to John Tortorella's press conference, and I know John very well. Torts, you got to attack the leadership group. You got to find that leadership group. Those 4 or 5 guys are so instrumental in your dressing room. They're going to preach what you're preaching. So he's got to find 4 or 5 strong leaders in there to really relay the message. And Torts has some, he doesn't have a lot of rules, John, but the one thing, he has a couple of rules, and there's some non-negotiables. And if you don't come prepared to work, if you can't give him a 40-minute or 30 minutes, it's not like Torts is going to keep guys on the ice for hours and hours. That's not his style. But if you can't concentrate for 40-minute practice, do the right things at what he wants, you're going to have a tough time with him. But if you come in, work hard, pay attention, and have detail in your game, I think that's where John will, you'll really love Torts as a coach.
Yeah, Rick, you've worked with Mike Sullivan a lot in your career, who of course worked with John Tortorella. Did you see some similarities there? And what kind of coach are the Flyers getting in a guy like John Tortorella?
Yeah, I was very lucky to coach under his staff, Mike Sullivan, and he's him and Torts. Sully grew up with him, coaching and learned a lot from him. But I think Sully has his own style. Sully's a really out of the box thinker. But I think with Torts, like I said, he really relies on assistant coaches. Especially with specialty teams. And I think Torts will probably take the bulk of the D zone coverages. The system that they're going to do. And but they're similar in the way that they like I said, they don't have a lot of rules, but there's non-negotiables there, and they're very firm on it. And if you're a player that's going to fight these on them, you're going to have a tough time with these type of coaches. But I love both those coaches. I think they're both successful. I love the way they think the game, and they really give autonomy to their leadership group, and that's what I like.
Yeah, Toc, when you look at John Tortorella's resume, particularly his years in Columbus, those rosters that he coached in Columbus, they didn't really jump off the page at you. There wasn't a superstar there. And in fact, they were losing players like Artemi Panarin to free agency, and they continued to make playoff runs under Tortorella. So you could say he probably got more out of than what the roster said on paper. Do you view
Yeah,
this Flyers situation as a similar kind of situation?
yeah, I think when Torts went to Columbus, he wanted to make them relevant, and I think he did that with their work ethic. When you talk about playing the Columbus Blue Jackets with Torts behind the bench, you knew every night you're going to get 100% effort from that team. Unfortunately, they had to run into those Pittsburgh teams. We're in the same division, and Pittsburgh had an all-star lineup, so we actually played them a couple times in the playoffs. And they're all, I think we won in 5 games one year, and it seems like we rolled over them. But I'm telling you, every game was competitive. It could have went either way early in the series. So yeah, with John Tortorella's work ethic is something that you can control. You can't control what players you get, who comes and goes in free agency. Sometimes that's you got to be lucky if flip a coin every once in a while. But when it comes to work ethic, there's no negotiables with John Tortorella.
Rick, I remember when you were with the Coyotes and you came to Philadelphia, you really raved about Ivan Provorov and how much you like him on the back end. He's gone through some bumps in the road over the last couple of seasons, but do you still see him as a top pair guy that can really anchor your back end?
Absolutely. His arrow's trended down the last year and a half or two. For whatever reason, I don't know what's going on in the dressing room, but he's got the skill, he's got the hockey IQ. He's proved it. Like I said a couple of years ago, I love that guy. I wouldn't have traded that guy for nobody. But I think this guy right now is gets a summer off to refresh. Gets a new coaching staff, a new defensive coach, and I think he can just kind of relax going into this year, and don't put so much pressure on him. I've watched him walk the blue line on the power play, and it seems like from 2 years ago, he had a shot mentality. It seems like he's overpassing. That's just from my bird's eye view from being on your guys' side, the media side. So I'd like to see him take more control of a power play, be the top guy. But all around, his breakouts and things like that, what I've seen, he's got the capability of a top defenseman in this NHL league.
Tuck, over the last couple of years, really since the bubble playoffs, the way this Flyers team has trended seemingly steadily downward. You're really part of the fabric and the history of this team. Obviously, Jordan mentioned your Flyers Hall of Famer and a couple Stanley Cup final runs in the 80s. Has it been difficult for you to see what this franchise has gone through in the last year and a half or so?
Yeah, it is. It's the last 3-4 years. It's hard because I always root for certain. Listen, I'm on the other side now, so it's hard to root for teams. But I've always secretly rooted for the Flyers, the Penguins, teams that I've played. I have some invested interest in. I know a lot of people in the organization or in the city. And I don't want to sound corny, but the fans do deserve. They've paid a lot of money over the years to come see the Flyers play. They've packed the buildings in. They expect a lot, but I don't think they're expecting a lot now. I think they're expecting a team that's going to work hard and win a little bit here. And I think, you're right, Joe. Yeah, the last couple of years has been tough because especially on the broadcast, we start talking about other teams. We hardly, once in a while talk about the Flyers, and it's hard because I always wanted hey, let's get, can we give these guys some love? But when you don't have results and winning, people want to follow the Colorados and Tampas and stuff like that. So I think it's important that the culture starts now with John Tortorella, and the way when you come into that building, like the old days, you had to strap it on if you wanted to play the Flyers. Now it's a little bit easier to go in there, no offense, and I think they have to get that swagger back, and that's what the fans want. They want that swagger back, and it'll be an interesting year. I like to see how this team does this year with the guys coming back and Torts' new staff.
Yeah, Rick, do you feel like the return of Sean Couturier and the addition of Nick Delorier and Tony DeAngelo, do you feel like some of these guys can make them tougher to play against?
Yeah, I know. I'm a big fan of Nicholas Delorier. I love his presence. I know people are, why a 4-year deal and all this kind of money, but he is a guy that I remember coaching against when I was in the Coyotes in Anaheim, and they had a young team, and they didn't get pushed around. There's nothing worse when you're a young team and you're trying to find your way, and you also get slapped around on the ice. Well, you're not going to get slapped on the ice with Nick Delorier, and he's just not just a fighter, which I think he's probably could be the toughest guy in the NHL. He's a good penalty killer. So, he's a guy that's going to really help the young guys breathe and relax on the ice. And that's very important. I'm telling you right now, I don't care what era the league is. You know, when you have those guys on the bench and in your locker room, they really make everybody taller. And I've heard some quotes from some people about that. You know, D'Angelo had a great year last year. I mean, he was really good with Carolina. He's a guy that can really help their power play. And then Sean Couturier, you know, he's one of the best two-way hockey players. You know, his name was up for the Olympic team. You know, he probably would have made that team if he wasn't hurt. So, you know, you get those 200-foot centermen like him and Hayes and Lawton. It's a pretty good three there as centermen. You know, hopefully Frost, as a young kid, comes in and can kind of fill that offensive role. So, you know, I always want to build down the middle, and I think, you know, as much people criticize the Flyers, you know, talent and all, I still like their middle, down the middle. They have some good centermen there.
Talk, last year, you'd have to really, really think about it to get some bright spots. But I thought one of them definitely was the pairing of Travis Sanheim and Rasmus Ristolainen as the second pair of defensemen. And when you look at being hard to play against, Rasmus would seem to be one of those players. So do you think it was a good move for them to extend him? And how do you think he fits in with the team and the growth of Sanheim's game? We talked about how this past season was a pivotal season for him, having to kind of shed that young player label and be more of a veteran and establish himself. So what do you think about that pair?
Well, I love their body. They're long. You know, they got a long reach. They can skate. They make good breakout passes most of the time. Those are the prototypical D you want. You know, when you can put those two guys out there against, you know, the New York Rangers high-flying offense or Pittsburgh or Crosby, those guys, you need that pair. Saying that, like see Ristolainen play, you know, they got to get his hockey IQ up a little bit. I think sometimes he, you know, a couple of, you know, ill-advised passes, or sometimes he gets lost in his own end. And I think that's, you know, from looking at, you know, with maybe a new staff, maybe teaching him differently, he can raise, because he's a guy with the body he has, the way he can be a nasty guy on the ice. That's what wins in the playoffs. You know, you look at the Tampa, and even Colorado, their defense, where everyone wants to talk about their offense, well, their defense was great. So that's a big key, that pair. If they both have good years, that's going to be really help the Flyers out. But if they don't, I mean, they're going to struggle, obviously, because that's their shutdown pair. And Sanheim, I think, really improved. So is there another level this year from those two guys?
Yeah, sticking with defense, Rick, there's kind of this big mystery with Ryan Ellis. He's dealing with this multi-layered injury in his pelvic region. Have you ever heard or seen anything quite like it? And do you feel like a player can rebound from that and be the same guy once he recovers?
Yeah, of all the injuries in the NHL players, you know, from my experience in the 30 years, anything in the pelvic, groin, you know, hips, vital part of an NHL hockey player for skating, mobility, pivoting, and that's the one injury you want. You can actually overcome knee injuries and back injuries and stuff. When it comes to that pelvic area, and I don't know exactly how bad it is, but that's a big lifeline for Ellis. You know, having a strong core, the way he plays the game. You know, I think he's a terrific player. I mean, just even coaching against him, just the way he played in Nashville, that defense. So if he can find that, you know, hopefully he's rehabbing properly. He's got the right things going on, and he can be somewhat 100%. That's a vital key in that, not only in the dressing room, like, you know, but on the ice, just to be a leader. Last minute of a period, last minute of a game to shut a game down. Who are you throwing out there? Ellis will be out there. You know, is there a key power play? He's played power play before, so you need those guys in key moments to really calm everybody down. Hopefully that area really, his pelvic area, can heal and be ready for training camp.
Last one for me, talking. After your first year with TNT, you're a year or so removed from coaching. Where do you see yourself sticking with media? Do you think you're always keeping your options open? How are you approaching your future as far as media or getting back involved in the league?
Yeah, I've interviewed for a few teams. There's a couple teams. I thought I almost had the job for whatever reasons, and for me, and I'm not. Listen, I can't sit here and say I can be picky and choosy, but I got to go in the right situation. In my last two stops, the head coach was more of projects and, the organization find their way. I like to try to find a team that's a little bit more solid and have a chance to go in that way. Like I said, I'm not arrogant enough to know that I can pick and choose. But on the other end, I love TNT. I love what I'm doing. I could see them being there for another 5 years if they want me. And we had a good year last year. It was a lot of fun. We're going to try this year of new ways to get information to the fans in a different way, and I think that's something that TNT's brand is big on. But I enjoy it. I love the guys, the camaraderie with the guys. So I can't wait for October when we start.
How cool was it with the dynamic with Charles? I know you guys worked him in. He came in on the set several times during the year, during the playoffs. He's a huge hockey fan. I mean, quite frankly, one of the biggest proponents of the game. He's all over the place talking about the NHL. So how cool was that dynamic? I know you and Charles are friends.
Yeah, I've known Chuck for about 30 years. He's the best. And I get to see him quite a bit. There's funny stories of them guys. We'll be in the green room watching the game, right? We're going to watch the first period, going to go on in 10 minutes, for the intermission. And Charles walks in because he's got the NBA show. He doesn't even watch the basketball game sometimes. He sits there with us. And he'll talk, he's a big John Cooper, knows John Cooper really well. He always wants the Flyers to win, but he's sitting with us with Gretzky and all that and talking hockey. He's a great ambassador for us. He really is for the NHL. When you have a high-powered, one of the biggest faces in the world, everybody recognizes Charles Barkley. When he says NHL playoff hockey is the best, that's pretty good for us because it only helps the NHL fraternity when you have a guy like that promoting the game.
Yeah, we can see how much fun you guys have on set, Rick, and it's such a treat for the viewers. You've dealt with nothing but pressure in your career as a player and as a coach. Is it kind of nice to be away from that pressure and be like, nope, no thanks?
Yeah, every once in a while, but Craig Brewer's one of my best friends. I talk to him quite a bit, so I get a little bit of, we talk hockey a lot, so I get my fill because I'm a competitive guy. I love watching a game last minute and hey, I would do this, or hey, I would have this guy in the ice. You play those games as a coach on the ice when you watch the game. So I miss that part, the competition of it. But it's that, no pressure. Yeah, on our side, I mean, I'm always right on this side. It's easy, That's
Top, one of
the way it works.
One of the memorable moments this year was during the playoffs when you and Biz had a big argument about shooting at the empty net. At the end of games. And that was, it was completely captivating to watch. I'm sure it was great to be on set because, a lot of times you don't get the honest sort of battles on TV. That's more of a rarity. And that was, I thought it was refreshing to see. I love those kind of passionate sort of arguments.
Yeah, they love it, man. They're in my ear, say, talk, go for it, go. They want me to get it going. Well, here's the thing. I was getting ganged up. Biz and Anson Carter and Liam were saying it was that Washington playoff. Hathaway had the puck, and they all four. And I'm sorry, Wayne wasn't there that day, but he came back the next week, and we brought it up again. And obviously, Wayne said, "Don't, you wouldn't go for the empty net." And my big line to Wayne, how many empty net goals you have, Wayne? He said 87. So, yeah, but he said they were all from the center ice in. So that's the convincing we were getting. But I was really passionate about it. I disagree with those four guys. I'm going for it. You got to ice the game. 2 minutes left. Yeah, I understand 15, 20 seconds, you can flip it out. But I want to send that game. I want it over. And I think analytics says the same thing. So, but that's the stuff they want, though. They want that argument. And we're not, I don't care what a guy says. I'm not going to agree with him. I'm going to tell him I disagree. It's almost like sitting in a bar having, when guys and girls talk about sports, you convince back and forth, and there are going to be some arguments. And I think people love that.
Yeah, they definitely do. It's been a treat to watch, and we've enjoyed it. And we're going to look forward to it next season as well. Rick, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you're having a great summer. It's always a treat talking Flyers hockey with you. We really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I listen to you guys all the time, and hopefully you guys have some good things to talk about. I'm really rooting for the Flyers this year, and John Tortorella is a great guy. So hopefully they get off to a good start.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Doc.
Thanks so much, Rick.
Thank you.
Flyers Talk is brought to you by Great Railing. Stop into Great Railing for the highest quality and lowest prices on all your railing, decking, and fencing needs. Awesome stuff from Rick Tocchet. Glad he's having a great summer and really appreciated his insight on the Flyers. Obviously, you can't get a better guy than Rick Tocchet, a guy that's played in the city, has done so much in this city, knows what it's like to succeed in Philadelphia, knows what it's like behind the bench. You just get so much great insight. Joe, what was your biggest takeaway from everything that Rick really gave us?
Well, again, in last week when we had Scott Hartnell on, the same thing, the insight into how John Tortorella will coach. And also the first thing I asked him about was how difficult an undertaking is to come into a situation and reshape the way people think, particularly the way people think in a situation like this, where the Flyers have struggled now basically since the bubble playoffs. And he said it's not going to happen overnight. I don't think anybody's under any delusions that it will happen overnight. But, when the season starts, people get the juices flowing and then they get mad right away when they're not good. And so that to me was a big takeaway about the process and the struggle of reshaping a franchise, which really is what John Tortorella and his staff are tasked with here with the Flyers beginning in September.
Yeah, that was great stuff to know. Obviously, his connections to Mug Sullivan, and he knows John Tortorella. So, and Rick's been a head coach himself. So to hear what he thinks needs to be done here about really rebuilding the culture and getting people buying back in on the Flyers was great. I really enjoyed his insight on Ivan Provorov. I remember when he was here with Arizona, and he just really raved about Provorov. And that was before Provorov kind of had a couple of lumps here over the next 2 seasons. But he was real high on him, and there's probably been some far-off speculation about Provorov's future here. Could he be a trade chip this offseason? And to hear Rick say I wouldn't have traded that guy for anything, I thought really grabbed my ears and opened my eyes, that he's still really high on him. And maybe it tells you sometimes to be patient with a guy like Ivan Provorov. Can he get more help to make him better again? And do you remember that he's only 24 and still 25 actually, and still really possibly reaching his prime. So I really enjoyed hearing him talk about Ivan Provorov.
Yeah, I can remember back at the 2019 season, maybe, whenever the last time Rick was in town with the Arizona Coyotes when he was the head coach, and going downstairs with Taran to interview him before the game against the Flyers. And the first thing he did was bring up Ivan Provorov. And that was when Provorov was 21 or 22. And he just talked about how dynamic of a player he is. Mm-hmm. So it is encouraging to hear a guy that's forgotten more hockey than either of us and a lot more people, say that about a guy that, quite frankly, the Flyers want to see more out of. So hopefully that can happen. And I think Provorov is a guy that I think confidence plays a lot. And I think last year he looked like a guy that had lost confidence in his game. So hopefully he can regain that and regain the form that caused Rick Tocchet to talk about him in such glowing terms.
Yeah, and you even heard Rick say, take a little bit off his shoulders and not play, not wear, not have so much pressure on his shoulders. And I think that's been the Flyers' goal with trying to get back to what Provorov was in 2019-20 when he had Matt Niskanen and they balanced each other out so well. That'll be a big key for sure. Well, great stuff from Rick. Really appreciate him coming on. Always appreciate his time and insight. Joe, thanks so much to you. Of course, as always, can't wait to hear more from you. And obviously, we're itching for pre and post game live already, hearing so much about John Tortorella. A big thank you to Ben Berry, our podcast producer and guru, for always being flexible with our time. And Flyers fans, of course, can't forget you. Thank you so much for listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast presented by Great Railing. Wherever you get your podcasts, please rate and listen, and we can't wait to talk to you next time.